I woke up as Alex Stone, the scion of the dynastic Stone family. As the most gifted talent the Stone family had ever seen, I was destined to become an Archmage, to dominate all the lesser houses. But who would have thought the original Alex was just a sad, pathetic side character, a stepping stone for Tiffany Reynolds and her true love, a desperate simp who chased after her every whim. Huh, well, I'm in control now. Let's see who the real protagonist is. Alex, my lady saw a sword at the Grand Bazaar auction, but she's short on funds. The sharp female voice jabbed at my eardrums. I snapped my eyes open to see Chloe, Tiffany's assistant, standing before me. Her hands were on her hips, chin tilted up like she owned the place. Memories flooded my mind. I transmigrated into Alex Stone, the scion of the dynastic Stone family. A genius meant to conquer all, reduced to a mere stepping stone for Tiffany Reynolds and her supposed soulmate. Hey, are you even listening? What's with the blank stare? Chloe tapped her foot impatiently. My lady's waiting. Hand over 3 million spirit gems now. I narrow my eyes. I remembered this scene perfectly from the novel. The sword Tiffany wanted would eventually be gifted to Jake Miller, the male lead. And the original Alex? He'd foolishly forked over the money, then personally escorted her to meet his rival. If she knew she didn't have the funds, why bid on it in the first place? I slowly picked up my teacup. Chloe froze. Clearly, she hadn't expected the scion, who always bent over backward for her lady, to respond like that. Her face flushed scarlet. She slammed her hand down on the table. Alex, don't be ungrateful. If you upset my lady, you'll regret it. A hairline crack spiderwebbed across the rosewood under her palm, splashing tea onto my robes. I glanced down at the tea stain, then smiled. Crack. The slap echoed through the hall, sharp and clear. Chloe went flying, slamming into a pillar before slumping to the floor. Half her face was already swelling, a trickle of blood at the corner of her mouth. Her eyes were wide with disbelief. Since when does a mere assistant get to yell at me? I stood up. Next time I'll kill you. Chloe clutched her swollen face, her eyes shifting from terror to venomous hatred. Why you hit me? My lady won't let you get away with this. I'll tell her, you'll see. My gaze hardened. In the novel, this assistant, emboldened by Tiffany's favor, had constantly made trouble for the original Alex. She'd even been part of the plot to set him up. Grandmaster Ethan. I called softly. The temperature in the hall plummeted. A hunched figure materialized silently behind me. Scion, I am here. Chloe stared at me in horror. Gee, Grandmaster Ethan. No, Scion, have mercy. I was wrong. Cripple her. I set my voice flat. Grandmaster Ethan's gnarled finger tapped lightly. Chloe shrieked, her spirit energy draining from her like a burst dam. She collapsed, cultivation shattered, her eyes filled with utter despair. Get out. I wave my hand. Tell Tiffany Reynolds, if she wants something, she can come get it herself. Chloe scrambled out of the great hall, not daring to utter another word. Grandmaster Ethan remained motionless, his cloudy eyes fixed on me. A faint smile touched his lips. 3 years. I thought the scion would truly waste away over that Reynolds girl. My heart pounded. The novel mentioned that Grandmaster Ethan was one of the Stone family's most mysterious elders. When I was born, a cosmic phenomenon had shaken the ancestral lands, drawing him out of seclusion to become my protector. But as my obsession with Tiffany Reynolds deepened, his disappointment grew. Eventually, when the Stone family faced ruin, he chose to remain in his eternal seclusion. I've disappointed you, Grandmaster Ethan. I bowed respectfully. The old man shook his head, a gleam in his eyes. It's not too late, not at all. What the scion did today, that's truly worthy of the primordial physique. Grandmaster Ethan's form slowly faded, leaving behind a single, meaningful remark. I keenly await the scion's next moves. Someone to the Grand Bazaar auction house. Inside the Grand Bazaar, the opulent auction hall was packed. Tiffany Reynolds bit her lip, her fingers clenching the hem of her dress. Her eyes were glued to the sword of retribution on display. It was the gift she'd promised Jake Miller, but the price had already been driven up to 3,800,000 spirit gems, far beyond her budget. Tiffany, maybe we should just let it go. Jake Miller gently squeezed her hand, his eyes full of feigned tenderness. It's just a sword. It's not worth putting yourself through this. No. Tiffany shook her head stubbornly. I promised you this sword, and I'm going to get it for you. She turned to the auctioneer, gritting her teeth. 3,900,000. The words barely left her lips when a lazy voice drifted from the back. 4 million. The entire auction hall erupted in gasps, every head turning towards the source of the voice. I strode forward in my dark, brocaded robes, a purple gold jade pendant, symbolizing the stone scion, hanging at my waist. A few elders from my family surrounded me. Mr. Davies, the manager of the Grand Bazaar, spotted me and immediately scurried over, his face wreathed in smiles. Scion Stone, one honor. You could have just sent word if there was anything you liked. No need for you to personally make the trip. I offered a faint smile. I heard there were a few interesting items at today's auction, so I thought I'd take a look. Mr. Davies's eyes flickered. He immediately announced in a loud voice, "This sword of retribution. The Grand Bazaar is pleased to present it to the Scion as a token of our esteem." A collective gasp rippled through the auction hall. A treasure worth 4 million spirit gems, given away just like that. Such was the might of the dynastic Stone family. Tiffany Reynolds shot to her feet, her expression first surprise, then irritation. She marched towards me, her eyes blazing with reproach. "Alex, you finally decided to show up? I haven't even settled things with you about Chloe. Give me the sword. Jake needs it." She reached for the sword and missed her. Davies's hand, as if it were hers by right. I gently raised my hand, and a pulse of spirit energy pushed her back 2 steps. "Miss Reynolds," I said slowly, "if you want something by it, reaching out to take it? Are you a beggar?" The entire auction hall fell silent. Tiffany Reynolds's expression froze. Her eyes widened as if she didn't recognize me. "Why you? What did you say?" In a corner, a crippled Chloe glared at me venomously, shrieking, "My lady, he dares speak to you like that." I didn't even spare her a glance. I simply turned to Mr. Davies. "Package the sword. Deliver it to Seraphina Hayes, the Grand Master of the Radiant Order." "Seraphina," Tiffany Reynolds' voice shot up. "You're giving it to her? That Ice Queen? Alex, are you out of your mind?" Jake Miller approached then, a thinly veiled smile plastered on his face. "Alex, this sword is truly important to me. How about this? You let me have it today, and I, Jake Miller, will repay you handsomely another time." I finally bothered to look properly at the novel's male lead. He was clad in white, handsome, certainly exuding a protagonist aura. Too bad for him. "And who are you again?" I scoffed. "You think you're in a position to negotiate with me?" Jake Miller's smile froze. A flash of malice flickered in his eyes, quickly replaced by his usual placid expression, though his fists, hidden in his sleeves, were clenched white. Tiffany Reynolds was trembling with rage. "Alex, how dare you speak to Jake like that? Do you even know who his family is?" "What about them?" I cut her off. "The Reynolds? What are they?" "A second-rate vassal family. Your own father would kneel before me." Tiffany Reynolds' face went ashen. Clearly, she hadn't expected me to say something like that. I took a step closer, looking down at her. 3 years. I, Alex Stone, have given your Reynolds family enough face. Get out. With that, I turned and walked away, leaving a hall full of stunned onlookers. Behind me, Tiffany Reynolds' hysterical shriek echoed. "Alex, you'll regret this. I'll make you come crawling to me, begging for forgiveness." Jake Miller's low voice followed. "Tiffany, let's go. This insult today, he'll repay it 100-fold someday." I didn't look back, a cold smirk playing on my lips. Regret? The delusional simp of the original Alex might have, but I wouldn't. The show's just getting started. "Mr. Albright bowed, standing before me. "Scion, are you truly going to reclaim all the Reynolds family assets?" My fingertip tapped lightly on the rosewood armrest. "What, Mr. Albright? Do you have an issue with it?" "Certainly not, Scion." "Mr. Albright quickly lowered his head. "It's just that the Reynolds have been vassals of the Stone family for a century." "A century?" I scoffed. "Even a dog knows how to wag its tail and beg for scraps after a century, instead of biting the hand that feeds it. Go." I flicked a purple gold token from my sleeve. "Take the enforcers with you. Don't leave them a single spirit gem." "Mr. Albright took the token with both hands, bowed, and exited the great hall. I watched his hunched back disappear, a cold smirk playing on my lips. Tiffany Reynolds, enjoy your surprise. In the main hall of the Reynolds estate, Mr. Reynolds, the family patriarch, was all smiles as he entertained several distinguished guests. Rest assured, gentlemen, with the support of the Stone Scion, the Reynolds family's rise is just around the corner. Mr. Reynolds stroked his beard, his eyes gleaming with pride. That Tiffany girl, a bit headstrong, but Alex is absolutely devoted to her. The guests nodded in agreement, their faces wreathed in sycophantic smiles. Just then, hurried footsteps approached. The head butler rushed in, flustered. Patriarch, Mr. Albright from the Stone family has arrived. What? Mr. Reynolds shot to his feet, his face alight with wild joy. Quick, prepare for his arrival. The Scion must be sending more gifts. The entire Reynolds family immediately bustled with activity. Servants scurried to prepare refreshments, and Mr. Reynolds himself adjusted his robes, ready to greet the Stone family's head of staff. Tiffany Reynolds heard the commotion and emerged from her chambers, a trace of anger still on her face. Dad, what's going on? Tiffany, quick, get dressed up. Mr. Albright from the Stone family is here. The Scion must have sent him to apologize. Mr. Reynolds said excitedly. Remember, seize the opportunity to demand more resources. Maybe even another man of Vane. A flicker of triumph crossed Tiffany Reynolds' eyes. She snorted softly. Now he wants to apologize? Too late. Unless he kneels before me himself and admits his mistake, I'll never forgive him. Despite her words, she quickly returned to her room, changed into her most exquisite gown, and after carefully primping, made a leisurely entrance into the main hall. When she stepped into the hall, Mr. Albright was already seated at the head with Mr. Reynolds and several elders cautiously seated beside him. Mr. Albright, Tiffany Reynolds raised her chin slightly, a hint of arrogance in her tone. Did Alex send you? Mr. Albright set down his teacup and gave her a blank look. Miss Reynolds, mind your words. Before the Stone family, your Reynolds family isn't even worth a stray dog. The entire hall fell silent. Mr. Reynolds' face changed drastically. Mr. Albright, what is the meaning of? By the Scion's command. Mr. Albright stood up, taking a scroll from his sleeve. As of today, all businesses, man of Vane's, and treasures granted to the Reynolds family are hereby reclaimed. You have 3 days to return every item on this list, without exception. What? Mr. Reynolds looked as if he'd been struck by lightning, stumbling back a few steps. This can't be. Tiffany Reynolds' face was chalk white. She shrieked. He wouldn't dare. Is Alex crazy? Doesn't he care if I never speak to him again? Insolent, Mr. Albright roared, a mountain-like wave of spiritual pressure slamming down. Tiffany Reynolds dropped to her knees with a thud, her impact cracking the bluestone beneath her. She looked up in disbelief, a trickle of blood at the corner of her mouth. A mere Reynolds family member dares to address the Scion by name? Mr. Albright said coldly. The Scion said it himself. All the feed wasted on you dogs over the years. It's time to collect. Mr. Reynolds frantically held his daughter back, turning to Mr. Albright and bowing repeatedly. Mr. Albright, please calm your anger. My daughter is foolish. Mr. Albright scoffed. Mr. Reynolds, don't say I didn't warn you. The Scion stated that if all items are not returned within 3 days, you will face the consequences. With that, he turned and left, leaving the Reynolds family members with faces like death. It's over. Everything is over. An elder collapsed into a chair, muttering to himself. Mr. Reynolds spun around and slapped Tiffany Reynolds across the face. Vile girl, what have you done to incur the Scion's wrath? Tiffany Reynolds clutched her face, her eyes wide with disbelief. Dad, you hit me? For Alex. Hit you? I wish I could kill you right now. Mr. Reynolds roared. Do you know how many resources we've gained thanks to the Stone family over the years? Without them, we're not even a second-rate house. Tiffany Reynolds finally realized the gravity of the situation, but she still bit her lip defiantly. No. Alex loved me so much. He'll regret this. He'll come begging for my forgiveness. Meanwhile, in a secluded cottage behind the Reynolds estate, Jake Miller sat cross-legged, a faint glow emanating from the ancient necklace around his neck. "Master," Jake Miller said, his brows furrowed. "Something's changed. That good-for-nothing Alex suddenly seems like a different person." An ancient voice emanated from the necklace. "Indeed, peculiar. Based on your previous descriptions, Alex was utterly infatuated with Tiffany Reynolds. Why would he suddenly turn his back on her? Not only that, a malicious glint appeared in Jake Miller's eyes. Today, he publicly humiliated me at the auction, and then he gave the sword of retribution to Seraphina Hayes of the Radiant Order." Seraphina Hayes? The ancient voice paused slightly. "The girl with the iceborne physique?" Jake Miller nodded. "Precisely. Master, I suspect Alex might have learned about the Archmage Sanctuary opening next month." The necklace was silent for a moment. Then the old man's voice grew grave. "No matter what he knows, he cannot be allowed to interfere with our plans. When the sanctuary opens next month, you must obtain Archmage Cinder's legacy. With 2 Archmage legacies, you'll be able to contend with the Stone family." Jake Miller clenched his fist. "But Master, Alex is a primordial physique, and he has the entire Stone family backing him." "No matter," the old man sneered. "The sanctuary is fraught with dangers. A few deaths are perfectly normal. As long as our plan is airtight, even the Stone family won't find anything." A vicious gleam flashed in Jake Miller's eyes. "Master, you mean? Prepare the Soul Reaver dust and the mana-suppressing talismans," the old man hissed. "Since he dared to humiliate you, then let him vanish forever in the sanctuary." Jake Miller's lips curved into a cruel smile. "Alex Stone, you brought this on yourself." "Scion, Mr. Reynolds and his daughter are kneeling outside, begging for an audience." A guard reported respectfully from outside the hall. I set down my ancient tome, looking up at the bright sunlight outside the hall. "Let them kneel. I'm busy right now." I stood adjusting my robes. Today, I'd specifically chosen a purple brocade robe, a purple gold sash, symbolizing the Stone Scion, tied at my waist. I exuded an air of nobility. "Prepare the carriage. To the Radiant Order." Outside the hall, Mr. Reynolds's forehead was pressed against the ground, his body trembling as he knelt on the bluestone. Beside him, Tiffany Reynolds's face was deathly pale, her eyes filled with tears of humiliation. "Dad, why are we groveling like this?" Tiffany Reynolds bit her lip, her voice barely a whisper. "Alex, he'll regret this. He loved me so much." "Silence, Mr. Reynolds frantically covered his daughter's mouth, terrified that the guards inside the hall might hear. "Do you want to doom the entire Reynolds family?" Just then, the great hall doors swung open. I strode out with a squad of guards, not even glancing at the 2 figures kneeling on the ground. Tiffany Reynolds suddenly looked up, a flicker of hope in her eyes. "Alex, I paused, glancing at her sideways, my gaze like one viewing an ant. "Miss Reynolds, your kneeling posture isn't quite up to standard," I said blandly. "Knees must be pressed to the ground, forehead touching the earth. That's how you beg for forgiveness." Tiffany Reynolds trembled, tears streaming from her eyes. How could you do this to me?" Ignoring her, I walked directly towards the Ether Dragon carriage that was already prepared. The carriage was pulled by 9 mythical beasts with draconic blood, its body inlaid with countless precious gems, glittering under the sunlight. "Where is the Scion going?" "Mr. Reynolds asked, trembling. The captain of the guard sneered. "Does the Scion need to report his destination to you?" The carriage ascended into the sky. Tiffany Reynolds stared fixedly at the retreating shadow, then shrieked, "He's definitely going to see that harlot Seraphina Hayes. Alex, you'll regret this." Mr. Reynolds slapped her across the face. "Foolish girl, haven't you already brought enough ruin upon the Reynolds family?" At the Radiant Order, clouds swirled, and celestial cranes soared gracefully. As my carriage reached the mountain gate, several elders came out to greet me. "Scion Stone, what an honor. We apologize for not greeting you sooner." I nodded slightly. "I've come specifically to pay my respects to your Grandmaster, and to see my fiancée, of course." The elders exchanged glances. Clearly, they hadn't expected me to be so direct. After all, the original Alex had avoided Serafina Hayes like the plague, dedicating himself entirely to Tiffany Reynolds. Inside the Grandmaster's hall, a white-bearded elder sat on the main seat, exuding an unfathomable aura. "Nephew Stone, what brings you to our radiant order today?" I bowed respectfully. "I've come to pay my respects to the Grandmaster, and I've brought a few humble gifts." With a wave of my hand, dozens of jade boxes appeared, neatly arranged in the center of the hall. Each box contained priceless treasures. The most striking was a 10,000-year-old snow ginseng, crystalline as jade, radiating a potent spiritual essence. The Grandmaster's eyes flickered with surprise. This is too valuable. Grandmaster Serafina and I have long been betrothed. These are merely a small token of my affection." I smiled faintly. "Furthermore, I wish to discuss the sanctuary event next month with Grandmaster Serafina." The Grandmaster stroked his beard and chuckled. "Serafina is cultivating in the glacier caverns. Nephew, you may go find her there." The glacier caverns were perpetually covered in snow, and in its center lay an icy pool, exuding an intense chill. I concealed my aura and quietly approached the pool's edge. In the icy waters, a graceful figure was cultivating. Serafina Hayes's white robes were soaked, clinging to her, outlining her perfect curves. Her chest, in particular, was tantalizingly outlined. Her eyes were closed, long lashes beaded with ice crystals. Her skin, white as snow, seemed almost translucent in the shimmering water. I leaned against an ancient tree by the pool, quietly appreciating the sight. The original Alex must have been blind to reject such a fiancé for that Tiffany Reynolds. Suddenly, Serafina Hayes's eyes snapped open, and an ice shard shot directly towards my face. I tilted my head, dodging it. The ice shard plunged deep into the tree trunk behind me. Peeping on a woman bathing? Is that how the stone scion conducts himself? Serafina Hayes's voice was cold and clear. She leaped from the pool, the water vapor around her instantly freezing and reforming into dry white robes. I spread my hands and chuckled. Watching my own fiancé? How can that be called peeping? Serafina Hayes gave me a cold glance and turned to leave. "Wait," I called out. "Is the sword of retribution to your liking?" She paused, not turning around. "Thank you. The sword is fine." "You're welcome." I walked up to her. "I came here to invite you, Grandmaster Serafina, to enter the Archmage sanctuary with me next month." Serafina Hayes finally looked at me directly. "Why me?" "Because I need to kill someone," I said, meeting her gaze. "Someone very specific." A flicker of interest crossed her eyes. "Ooh, Jake Miller." Serafina Hayes frowned slightly. "That rising rogue cultivator? What's so special about him?" I smiled but didn't answer. "You only need to know that killing him will benefit both of us." A cold wind swept through, lifting her long hair. Our eyes met. After a moment, she gave a small nod. "All right." A thrill went through me. I suddenly leaned closer to her ear. "How about we get married as soon as we're out of the sanctuary?" Serafina Hayes's brows furrowed, and she slammed a palm into my chest. I laughed heartily, stepping back and easily dodging her. "Farewell, fiancé. I'll come for you on the day the sanctuary opens." I turned to leave, her cool voice echoing behind me. "Speak such nonsense again, and you might lose your tongue." I waved a hand without looking back, leaving the glacier caverns in high spirits. As the Ether Dragon carriage ascended, I glanced back. At the peak of the glacier caverns, a white-clad figure stood silently, watching me depart. Meanwhile, at the Reynolds family mansion. "What? He really went to that harlot Serafina Hayes?" Tiffany Reynolds shrieked hysterically, smashing the porcelain in her room to pieces. "How could he? How dare he?" "Mr." Reynolds collapsed into a chair, his face like ashes. "It's over. Everything is over. The Stone Scion has completely abandoned the Reynolds family." In a corner, Chloe huddled, a malevolent gleam in her eyes. "My lady, we still have young Master Jake. He'll surely help us." Tiffany Reynolds suddenly stopped crying, a vicious glint in her eyes. "Yes, Jake. He promised me he'd make Alex pay in the sanctuary." On the day the sanctuary opened, the sky blazed with ethereal light. A golden war chariot, pulled by 9 colossal drakes, sliced through the heavens, drawing countless cultivators below to gaze upwards. It's the Stone Scion's carriage. I heard the Stone Scion's personality has completely changed recently. Not only did he withdraw all support from the Reynolds family, but he also publicly humiliated Tiffany Reynolds. That Miss Reynolds deserved it, lording it over everyone for years, all because the Scion indulged her. Amidst the chatter, the golden war chariot slowly descended onto the platform at the sanctuary's entrance. I, clad in dark old battle robes, stepped down from the chariot. As I turned, I extended my hand into the chariot. Grandmaster Seraphina, if you please. A slender, jade-like hand gently rested in my palm. Seraphina Hayes, in robes as white as fresh snow, floated gracefully from the chariot. Her beauty was unparalleled, her aura as cool as the moon. The moment she appeared, countless gasps of admiration erupted. Isn't that Grandmaster Seraphina Hayes from the Radiant Order? They actually came together. Didn't they say the Stone Scion was avoiding this marriage? I listened to the surrounding whispers, a slight curve to my lips. Under everyone's watchful eyes, I suddenly reached out, wrapped an arm around Seraphina Hayes' slender waist, and pulled her close. You, Seraphina Hayes frowned, a cold light flashing in her eyes. I leaned in close to her ear, whispering, "Play along. My rivals are watching." Seraphina Hayes' peripheral vision swept over a spot in the crowd. Sure enough, she saw Tiffany Reynolds and Jake Miller standing not far away, their faces a picture of disgust. She gave a cold snore but didn't pull away from my hand. I took the opportunity to raise my voice, already showing such respect for her future husband before marriage. She'll surely be a virtuous wife and loving mother after the wedding. The statement hit the calm crowd like a boulder thrown into a still lake, instantly causing a huge stir. Seraphina Hayes' ears flushed slightly. She covertly pinched my waist hard, making me almost cry out, "Alex, you two-timing jerk." A sharp scream came from the crowd. Tiffany Reynolds pushed aside the cultivators blocking her way, rushing over with a face full of venomous hatred. Behind her, Jake Miller's face was as dark as storm clouds, the ancient necklace around his neck glowing faintly. "Oh, isn't this Miss Reynolds?" I feigned surprise. "What's this, bringing your toy boy to seek revenge?" Tiffany Reynolds trembled with rage, pointing a finger at my nose and cursing. "You explicitly said you only loved me. Now you're openly flirting with this harlot." My eyes turned cold. Before I could speak, Seraphina Hayes beside me raised a hand and swiped. Slap. A loud slap echoed, sending Tiffany Reynolds flying several yards before she crashed heavily to the ground. Seraphina Hayes withdrew her hand, saying coldly, "Watch your mouth. Next time, I'll wipe out your whole family." "Tiffany." Jake Miller rushed forward to help Tiffany Reynolds up, then turned to glare at us. "Alex, Seraphina Hayes, you've gone too far." Jake Miller's killing intent flared. He gritted his teeth. Within the sanctuary, life and death are up to fate. I hope the Stone Scion survives. I released Seraphina Hayes' waist, stepping forward to confront Jake Miller. "Do you believe I could stop you from entering the sanctuary at all?" Just as the tension reached a breaking point, a deafening roar erupted from the sanctuary entrance. A brilliant gate of light slowly opened, exuding an ancient and potent aura. The sanctuary has opened. The crowd stirred, and talented cultivators from all corners surged towards the entrance. I glanced back at Seraphina Hayes. She gave a subtle nod, a flicker of understanding in her eyes. "Let's go," I murmured. Jake Miller, supporting Tiffany Reynolds, gave us one last cold glance before turning and vanishing into the gate of light. The sanctuary's gate of light slowly closed behind us, and the scene before my eyes shifted abruptly. The clear sky was replaced by a brilliant galaxy, countless stars swirling overhead, seemingly within reach. This is Archmage Celestial's sanctuary. Seraphina Hayes gazed up at the strange sky, her cool eyes reflecting flecks of starlight. I took a crystalline, shuttle-shaped artifact from my robes. Injecting spirit energy, its body immediately glowed with a dazzling silver light. A reality splitter shuttle? Seraphina Hayes raised a delicate brow. "The Stone family gave you even a sacred artifact like this. I chuckled, wrapping an arm around her waist. Your fiancé has plenty of good things. I'll show them to you gradually. Let go, she said coldly, but this time she didn't physically react. The reality splitter shuttle traced a silver arc in the air. I pulled Serafina Hayes into the spatial rift, and the next moment, we stood before a majestic palace. The palace was entirely crafted from stardust gold, glowing with a deep blue light under the stars. Above the main entrance, the character's Starfall Sanctuary on the plaque flowed with an immense spiritual essence, awe-inspiring to behold. Directly to an Archmage's legacy site, Serafina Hayes rarely showed surprise. You knew the route beforehand? I smiled mysteriously. I told you, Jake Miller has a secret. Everything within this sanctuary I know like the back of my hand. Saying that, I pushed open the heavy palace doors. The interior was far vaster than it appeared from the outside, as if we were standing in an endless starry void. At the center of the great hall, a brilliant nebula hovered, the very core of Archmage Celestial's legacy. Go ahead, I gestured. The legacy is yours. Serafina Hayes, however, stood still, a flash of stubbornness in her eyes. I want to claim it by my own power. I was a little surprised. If I can't even defeat you, what right do I have to accept an Archmage's legacy? She met my gaze, battle intent rising. I paused, then burst out laughing. All right. Before the words even left my lips, Serafina Hayes attacked. Her slender hand swept upwards, and hundreds of ice crystals instantly materialized, raining down on me. I remained still, merely snapping my fingers. Primordial energy swirled before me, devouring all the ice crystals. Serafina Hayes's eyes narrowed. She formed a hand seal. The ground instantly froze over, and countless ice spikes shot up from beneath my feet. I lightly tapped my toes, leaping into the air, and in the same motion, gently brushed her cheek. So smooth, I teased. Pervert. Her face was frigid, her spirit energy erupting. The temperature throughout the hall plummeted, even the moisture in the air crystallizing into tiny ice shards. Iceborne physique, full power. Now, this is interesting. A thrill sparked in my eyes, and I finally got serious. Serafina Hayes transformed into a streak of white light, assaulting me with blinding speed. I sidestepped her palm strike and casually gave her waist a light squeeze. She bristled with indignation, her attacks growing even more fierce. Ice crystals condensed into a long sword in her hand. Where its blade passed, even space itself showed faint cracks. I formed my fingers into a sword, primordial energy swirling at my fingertips, and met her attack head-on. Boom! A shockwave swept through the entire hall. Serafina Hayes stumbled back 7 steps before regaining her balance, while I remained perfectly still. I smiled faintly. Care to continue? Serafina Hayes bit her lower lip, then suddenly pressed her palms together. An ice crystal pattern appeared on her brow, and the faint apparition of an ice goddess emerged behind her. Oh, even manifesting the goddess of ice. That's impressive. My eyes lit up. Then I suppose I'll have to get serious too. I took a deep breath, circulating my primordial energy to its peak. A phantom primordial sea appeared behind me, subtly depicting the creation of worlds. 2 terrifying forces collided in the great hall, even the starlight dimming. Just as they were about to clash, I suddenly appeared behind her, wrapping an arm around her slender waist. I whispered in her ear, while my other hand gently pressed against her manicore. You lose. Serafina Hayes stiffened, feeling the primordial energy from my palm block all her spirit energy pathways. The ice goddess apparition instantly dissipated. She closed her eyes, unwilling to admit defeat. The primordial physique truly lives up to its name. I released her, smiling. Now, are you willing to accept the legacy? She tidied her slightly disheveled robes, saying coldly, You could have ended the fight much faster. Where's the fun in that? I winked. Besides, what a waste to miss out on a little playful teasing. Shameless. Her ears flushed. She turned and walked towards the Nebula Legacy. I'll guard you, but we'll have another fight after the legacy is complete. I chuckled, shaking my head. Anytime. Approaching the nebula, I sat cross-legged, The nebula sensed my primordial aura, immediately surging with excitement as countless stars gathered towards me. Guard me. If anyone approaches, kill them. I gave my final instruction, then closed my eyes, entering a state of cultivation. Seraphina Hayes, holding the sword of retribution, stood at the hall's entrance. Meanwhile, at the other end of the sanctuary, Jake Miller, with a single sword strike, slew the Phase 7 beast blocking his path, wiping blood from his face, panting. The ancient necklace around his neck emitted a faint glow. Master, how much further? Almost. The ancient voice resonated in his mind. I can sense the fluctuations of the legacy site. Strange. It seems someone is already there. What? Jake Miller's face changed drastically. Impossible. Besides us, who else knows the correct route? Tiffany Reynolds caught up from behind, her face full of adoration. Jake, you're amazing. Even an elder would struggle with that beast. Jake Miller forced a smile. Tiffany, we need to speed up. I sense activity at the legacy site. A malicious glint flashed in his eyes. No matter who it is, anyone who dares steal my opportunity will die. Outside the Starfall Sanctuary, Jake Miller and his group finally broke through numerous obstacles, arriving before the majestic palace doors. This is it. Jake Miller's eyes gleamed with greed. Archmage Celestial's legacy is inside. Tiffany Reynolds looked at him with adoring eyes. Jake, you're incredible. You even know about hidden legacy sites like this. Chloe, supporting Tiffany Reynolds, said venomously, My lady, once young Master Jake obtains the legacy, let's see how arrogant Alex can be then. Jake Miller was about to push the doors open when he suddenly stopped, cautiously glancing around. It's too quiet. Something's wrong. Just then, a clear, cold voice drifted down from the palace roof. Only noticing now? Too late. Everyone looked up. Seraphina Hayes, in flowing white robes, stood atop the eaves, holding the sword of retribution. The cold wind rustled her robes, making her appear like a celestial goddess descended to earth. Seraphina Hayes. Jake Miller's pupils constricted. What are you doing here? Where's Alex? Seraphina Hayes didn't answer. She merely waved her sword lightly. A sharp sword energy swept out, forcing the Reynolds family members back dozens of yards. Go in. She pointed her sword at Jake Miller. You alone. Jake Miller's expression fluctuated. The ancient voice in his necklace urged, Disciple, the situation has changed. Retreat now. No. A wild look flashed in Jake Miller's eyes. The legacy is right before me. I cannot retreat. He violently pushed open the palace doors and rushed inside. Behind him, Tiffany Reynolds gasped, Jake, be careful. The palace doors slammed shut behind Jake Miller, separating the inside and outside into two different worlds. Inside the great hall, starlight twinkled. Jake Miller frantically searched around. Where is it? Where's the Archmage's legacy? Stop looking. A lazy voice drifted from the depths of the hall. Jake Miller spun around. I was casually seated on a star-forged throne, my finger lightly tapping the armrest. An Archmage's legacy isn't something you're worthy of. I slowly stood, vast starlight swirling around me. Jake Miller's face instantly turned ashen. You've already received the legacy. I smiled faintly, but didn't answer. I simply opened my palm. A miniature nebula spun in my palm, emitting a heart-pounding fluctuation. No, this is impossible. Jake Miller shrieked hysterically. That was my destined opportunity. How dare you steal it? Your opportunity? I scoffed. Cheating with that old geezer in your necklace? You call that an opportunity? Jake Miller looked as if he'd been struck by lightning, stumbling back 2 steps. How do you know? I know far more than you can imagine. I descended the throne step by step. For example, your master is actually Archmage Cinder's lingering spirit, or how you plan to ambush me in the sanctuary. Jake Miller's face drained of color. He suddenly burst into a wild, distorted laugh, full of madness and despair. Ha ha! I, Jake Miller, reduced to this state. Now beg on your knees, and I might grant you a quick death. I calmly watched him transform, a meaningful smile instead playing on my lips. Finally, the moment I've been waiting for. Jake Miller, wreathed in terrifying flame energies, slammed a palm towards me. The scorching flames twisted and warped space itself. This strike possessed the full might of a saint-level cultivator. Jake Miller's face was distorted, his eyes full of madness. I, however, remained unhurried. I drew a golden scroll from my robes. The scroll's surface was covered in intricate dragon scale patterns, exuding a primordial, heart-stopping aura. An Archmage's edict? Jake Miller, under Archmage Cinder's control, suddenly cried out. I didn't answer. I simply unfurled the scroll. In an instant, a colossal pillar of golden light shot into the heavens, shaking the entire sanctuary. Boom! Vast Imperial might swept out like a tsunami, causing every cultivator in the sanctuary to feel a crushing weight. Those with weaker cultivation immediately knelt, unable to even lift their heads. This is Archmage Pressure. A cultivator, searching for treasure somewhere in the sanctuary, stared at the sky in terror. It's an edict from the Stone Archmage. An old man trembled. Who forced the Stone Scion to use such a supreme treasure? Within the golden light, a colossal figure slowly materialized. The figure's face was indistinct, but merely standing there, it seemed to be the sole supreme being in all creation. It stood atop a five-clawed golden dragon, with suns, moons, and stars orbiting behind it, the very manifestation of Archmage Everbright, the Stone family's founder. At the same time, Archmage Celestial's legacy within me was activated, and another imperial shadow appeared behind me. This figure was condensed from countless starlight, as if galaxies rotated with its every movement. Two Archmage manifestations appearing simultaneously. The very space of the sanctuary began to destabilize, groaning under the immense pressure. This is impossible. Jake Miller, under Archmage Cinder's control, watched his face turn ashen, the flames around him instantly dimming by more than half. Under the suppression of two complete Imperial authorities, his lingering spirit could barely sustain itself. With a thud, Jake Miller's body finally gave out under the pressure, falling unconscious and collapsing heavily to the ground. Only Archmage Cinder's lingering spirit remained, barely hovering in the air, struggling against the Archmage's pressure from the two figures. A lingering spirit of a later Archmage. Then, Archmage Celestial's manifestation suddenly spoke, his voice like the resonance of a billion stars. Archmage Cinder's lingering spirit trembled, saying bitterly, Celestial, you still retained a complete will. Archmage Everbright's manifestation turned to me. What is it? I bowed respectfully. I asked the two Archmages to allow this disciple to handle it myself. The two Archmages exchanged glances, then nodded simultaneously. Granted. As their voices faded, the terrifying Imperial might receded slightly, but still enveloped the entire hall, forming an invisible deterrent. I then looked at Archmage Cinder's lingering spirit, a faint smile on my lips. Indeed, this is where it ends. Archmage Cinder's lingering spirit was silent for a moment, then sighed. Clever tactics. I, who dominated an era, never expected to fall into the hands of a junior today. Ignoring his lament, I went straight to the point. Archmage Cinder, how about we make a deal? Oh, a flicker of surprise crossed Archmage Cinder's eyes. You join the Stone family and hand over your legacy to me. I slowly laid out the terms. With the Stone family's resources, it's not impossible to rebuild your physical body in the future. Archmage Cinder's lingering spirit visibly wavered, his phantom form fluctuating slightly. You can truly rebuild my body. The Stone family controls 36 top-tier mana veins, and we possess 3 immortality elixirs. I said confidently. Compared to following that good-for-nothing Jake Miller, cooperating with me is the wiser choice. Saying that, I pointed at the unconscious Jake Miller on the ground, my tone full of disdain. Archmage Cinder's lingering spirit fell into thought, his phantom face shifting with changing expressions. I struck while the iron was hot. You should understand, Archmage. With 2 Archmage wills present, destroying you is as easy as flipping a hand. I then changed my tone. However, I admire your talent and wish to treat you with respect. The words were both an invitation and a threat. Archmage Cinder's lingering spirit naturally understood the underlying meaning. his phantom form fluctuating once more. "You are far stronger than Jake Miller." Archmage Cinder's lingering spirit finally spoke, his tone complex. "Not only does your talent and power far exceed his, but your background as well." I didn't urge him, simply waited for his decision. Behind me, the two Archmage manifestations stood silently, their invisible pressure making the air itself seem to freeze. Outside the sanctuary, all the cultivators held their breath. Though they couldn't see what was happening inside the hall, the two vast imperial authorities made everything clear. Seraphina Hayes stood at the hall's entrance, sword in hand, feeling the fluctuations emanating from within. A flicker of unusual light crossed her cold eyes. Inside the hall, Archmage Cinder's lingering spirit finally looked up, meeting my gaze. "If I agree, will you truly uphold your promise?" I smiled faintly, raising my hand and conjuring a drop of my essence blood. "I can swear an oath to the cosmic will." Archmage Cinder's lingering spirit looked at the drop of essence blood, containing primordial aura. His last trace of hesitation vanished. Archmage Cinder's lingering spirit finally let out a long sigh. "Very well, I shall trust you this once." My lips curved upwards. A drop of my essence blood condensed at my fingertip, tracing arcane runes in the air. "I, Alex Stone, swear by the cosmic will. If Archmage Cinder submits to my stone family, I shall commit the full power of my lineage to rebuild his physical body. Should I renege on this oath, let the heavens strike me down." The moment the oath was formed, a golden light descended from the sky, enveloping both Archmage Cinder's lingering spirit and me. The laws of the cosmic will wove into a net in the void, bearing witness to this transaction. Now I asked the two Archmages to act. I turned to look at the two imperial shadows behind me. Archmage Everbright and Archmage Celestial simultaneously raised their hands. Two distinct, yet equally vast imperial powers transformed into golden and silver chains, wrapping around Archmage Cinder's lingering spirit. This is Archmage Cinder's lingering spirit's expression shifted slightly. "A small insurance policy." My smile remained. "You don't mind, do you, Archmage?" Archmage Cinder's lingering spirit gave a wry laugh. "Do I have a choice?" The imprint complete, two faint patterns appeared on Archmage Cinder's spiritual form. I nodded in satisfaction, then turned my gaze to the unconscious Jake Miller on the ground. "Next, it's time to deal with this good-for-nothing." I waved my hand, and a surge of primordial energy lifted Jake Miller's body, suspending him in midair. His face was ashen, blood still staining the corner of his mouth. He was a far cry from his former spirited self. "How do you intend to deal with him?" Archmage Celestial asked. A cold light flashed in my eyes. "Shatter his cultivation, sever his meridians, and ensure he can never rise again." Before the words finished, I formed my fingers into a sword, and a sharp primordial sword energy shot directly towards Jake Miller's mana core. Just as the sword energy was about to strike, an anomaly occurred. VWM, a brilliant golden light burst from Jake Miller's body, forming a shield that firmly protected him. My sword energy struck the golden light, creating ripples, but failed to break through. As expected, I sneered. The protagonist always has the cosmic will's protection. I looked towards the hall's exterior. The formerly clear sky was suddenly overcast, countless bolts of lightning rolling and roaring within the clouds, as if warning me not to act recklessly. "Two Archmages, I request your assistance," I said in a low voice. Archmage Everbright scoffed. "A mere sliver of the cosmic will dares to obstruct the Stone family's actions." He raised his hand and waved. A golden light shot into the sky, piercing directly through the thick clouds. Archmage Celestial, meanwhile, placed a single hand on Jake Miller's head, silver starlight transforming into countless fine threads, slowly suppressing the golden light within his body. Rumble! The lightning in the sky exploded with furious roars. As the dark clouds churned, they coalesced into a blurry human face, two dazzling bolts of lightning shooting from its eyes. Insolent, Archmage Everbright stepped forward, his form instantly appearing high in the sky, confronting the lightning face. The entire sanctuary trembled violently, the laws of heaven and earth becoming chaotic in that moment. At times, sun and moon shone together. At times, stars inverted. Spirit energy across 10,000 miles wildly surged. I seized this fleeting opportunity, forming hand seals, circulating my primordial energy to its absolute maximum. Primordial doom strike. With a single finger jab, primordial energy imbued with destructive power shot, like an arrow towards Jake Miller's mana core. This time, there was no golden light to block it. The finger strike pierced his core without obstruction. Ah! The unconscious Jake Miller let out a heart-wrenching shriek, blood simultaneously oozing from all 7 orifices. His cultivation rapidly drained away like a bursting dam, his meridians rupturing inch by inch. I didn't stop. I pointed another finger at his brow, directly crippling his mind palace. This strike severs your path to cultivation. The lightning face in the sky let out a deafening roar, but Archmage Everbright held it firmly at bay. The 2 Archmages, working together, forcefully isolated the cosmic will. When the last trace of cultivation dissipated from Jake Miller's body, the former Child of Destiny was completely crippled. Jake Miller lay slumped on the ground like a dead dog. I looked down at the former Child of Destiny. Before Archmage Everbright departed, he raised his hand and plucked a wisp of golden light from the dissipating thunderclouds, casually tossing it to me. A fragment of the cosmic will's essence. Consider it a small gift. The Archmage manifestation slowly faded, but his voice clearly resonated. Make good use of it. I bowed respectfully, absorbing the golden light into my body. Immediately, a profound power flowed through my meridians, perfectly merging with my primordial physique. Smack! I backhanded Jake Miller across the face, snapping him out of his unconsciousness. Jake Miller's eyes snapped open. The moment he saw me, his pupils constricted. How are you not dead? He struggled to get up, then suddenly froze. An expression of utter disbelief appeared on his face. He trembled, looking down at his body. My cultivation, my meridians, crippled. I said, my voice flat. Completely. Jake Miller's face instantly went paper white. He shook his head frantically. Impossible. This is impossible. Master, Archmage Cinder, save me. Slap. I slapped him again, leaving half his face swollen. The name of a Stone family guest elder. Is that something you're permitted to casually address? Jake Miller was stunned. Blood dripped from his mouth, but he didn't seem to notice, just staring fixedly at me. Why, you're lying. Master would never. Elder Cinder, I called softly. Come out and greet your good disciple. Archmage Cinder's lingering spirit floated from my sleeve, transforming into a phantom figure. He looked at the pitiful Jake Miller on the ground, a flicker of complexity in his eyes, which ultimately turned into a sigh. Jake, accept your fate. These 3 words were the final blow. Jake Miller looked as if he'd been struck by lightning, frozen in place. A moment later, he suddenly burst into maniacal laughter, a sound filled with madness and despair. Ha ha! I, Jake Miller, to fall to such a state. I didn't ignore his madness, but grabbed his collar and dragged him like a dead dog towards the hall's exit. The moment the hall doors opened, blinding sunlight poured in. Tiffany Reynolds was anxiously waiting outside. The moment she saw me, she froze. Then her gaze fell upon Jake Miller, whom I was holding. Jake! She shrieked, her face instantly turning chalk white. What did you do to Jake? I ignored her, my gaze shifting to Seraphina Hayes beside me. The cool Grandmaster rarely showed concern. She quickly stepped forward. There was an Archmage's aura fluctuation just now. Are you? All right. I reached out and pinched her fair cheek, teasing. Is my future wife worried about me? Seraphina Hayes' ears flushed slightly, yet surprisingly, she didn't pull away. She merely glared at me. Who's worried about you? I laughed heartily, then casually tossed Jake Miller down the steps. The former Child of Destiny tumbled down the long flight of stairs like a sack of rags, finally collapsing at Tiffany Reynolds' feet, bloody and pathetic. Jake! Tiffany Reynolds rushed forward to help him, but Jake Miller roughly pushed her away. Get away! Jake Miller shrieked hysterically. It's all because of you. If it wasn't for trying to help you, how would I have ended up like this? Tiffany Reynolds stood frozen, tears streaming from her eyes. Chloe hurried forward to assist her, but Tiffany Reynolds flung her hand away. I watched the farce with cold eyes, slowly descending the steps. Tiffany Reynolds, I looked down at her. Now, do you still think I'll regret it? Tiffany Reynolds was still desperately trying to comfort Jake Miller. Jake, don't lose heart. Once we get back and heal. I scoffed, shaking my head. Tiffany Reynolds suddenly looked up, her eyes filled with venomous hatred. Alex, don't get ahead of yourself. Just wait until Jake, just shut up. I cut her off coldly, constantly provoking me. Do you truly not understand the gap between us? She trembled, yet stubbornly continued to support Jake Miller. Let's go, go. A cold light flashed in my eyes. I'm the type who cuts the weeds at the root. Before the words even faded, I raised my hand and swept out a wave of primordial energy. No. Tiffany Reynolds shrieked, but it was too late to dodge. Whoosh! The primordial energy pierced directly through her mana core, sending both her and Jake Miller flying several yards. My lady, the Reynolds family members cried out in alarm, yet no one dared to step forward. Stone Scion, have mercy! A Reynolds family disciple suddenly knelt, kowtowing. It was that harlot who led us astray. Yes, yes. Other Reynolds disciples echoed. We've long despised that despicable pair. Tiffany Reynolds lay slumped, staring in disbelief at her family members who had once been so obsequious to her. You? I sneered. Too late. With a flick of my hand, dozens of attacks shot out, precisely striking every Reynolds cultivator's mana core. Screams rose and fell. In an instant, every Reynolds family member was crippled. As of today, I stood with my hands behind my back. The Reynolds family is no longer a vassal of the Stone family. All the reclaimed resources. I turned to Seraphina Hayes, a mischievous grin on my lips. Consider them Seraphina's dowry. Saying that, I reached out and pinched her delicate cheek again. Seraphina Hayes glared at me indignantly, yet uncharacteristically didn't pull away, merely huffing. Who wants your dowry? The Ether Dragon carriage carved a path across the sky. Seraphina Hayes sat by the window, her snow-kissed profile reflecting the flowing clouds. I subtly edged closer, reaching out to wrap an arm around her slender waist. Slap! She swatted my hand away without looking. Behave. We've just been through life and death together. I shamelessly leaned closer. When are we getting married? I've even thought of names for our kids. Herr Eotsieps instantly flushed. The sword of retribution shinked 3 inches from its sheath. Say one more word like that. I chuckled, raising my hands in surrender, then suddenly grew serious. Seriously, on the day I become an Archmage, will you marry me? The carriage suddenly grew quiet, the sea of clouds churning outside the window. After a long pause, she lowered her lashes. Ask me again when that day truly comes. 1,000 years, the blink of an eye, I stood atop the highest heavens, an endless sea of clouds beneath my feet, a brilliant galaxy overhead. For a millennium, I traveled 3,000 worlds, comprehending the essence of all laws. Finally, in this moment, I touched the threshold of the supreme Archmage realm. Boom! The primordial sea within me churned violently. Archmage Celestial's legacy and Archmage Everbright's bloodline merged perfectly, forming a grand path that stretched beneath my feet. Today I, Alex Stone, ascend Archmagehood. With my declaration, the entire world instantly changed. Above the 9 heavens, billions of golden lights pierced through the clouds, transforming into colossal golden dragons coiling in the sky. The earth trembled. Countless mana veins erupted, forming geysers of spiritual energy that shot into the heavens. Crackle, the void shattered. 3,000 fundamental laws manifested, weaving around me into a resplendent Archmage's robe. A purple-gold Archmage's crown formed above my head, inlaid with suns, moons, and stars, radiating eternal, unperishing brilliance. Hail, Emperor Alex! Below, the Stone family's ancestral lands trembled. All family members prostrated themselves, their voices shaking mountains and rivers. Further still, countless clans arrived, legions of cultivators bowing down in worship. Even reclusive ancient beings emerged from their hidden retreats, offering me grand homage. I felt the surging imperial power within me, capable of destroying heaven and earth with a flick of my wrist. This was the power of an Archmage, transcending all beings, eternal as the heavens and earth, as the saying goes. I am Emperor destined to quell all foes. My voice resonated across 3,000 worlds, heard clearly in every corner. Countless cultivators blanched at the sound, many even falling directly to their knees in worship. My declaration complete, my gaze shifted towards the Radiant Order, a smile playing on my lips. 1,000 years of waiting. Finally, it was time to fulfill my promise. Whoosh! With a single step, space folded beneath me. In the blink of an eye, I was above the Radiant Order. The Radiant Order was adorned with festive lights and banners, clearly prepared to welcome the new Emperor's arrival. The Grand Master, leading all the elders and disciples, knelt in greeting, their faces filled with excitement and honor. My gaze, however, was fixed solely on the white-clad figure in the crowd. Seraphina Hayes wore a simple white gown, her hair adorned only with a single white jade hairpin, yet she outshone any elaborate attire. A millennium had passed. She had grown even more exquisitely beautiful, simply standing there, dimming everything around her. Seraphina, I whispered, my voice softer than one might expect from a newly ascended Archmage. Seraphina Hayes looked up, a subtle ripple in her cool eyes. She was about to bow when I pulled her into my arms. Her ears flushed. She tried to struggle, but how could she contend with my imperial power? I whispered into her ear, my warm breath brushing her sensitive lobe. 1,000 years ago, you said you'd consider marrying me once I became an Archmage. Now, can we finally get married? The entire Radiant Order fell silent, everyone holding their breath, awaiting the Grandmaster's answer. Seraphina Hayes' face was as red as a sunset. She lowered her head, her voice barely a whisper. Igriegagis. Ha ha ha. I threw back my head and laughed, sweeping her into my arms. Then tonight, let's consummate the marriage. You put me down. Seraphina Hayes pounded my chest in exasperation, but her blows held no force. Ignoring her protests, I strode towards the waiting Archmage's carriage, carrying her in my arms. 9 true dragons pulled the carriage into the sky, soaring amidst the celestial glow towards the Stone family's imperial palace. Behind us, the Grand Master of the Radiant Order shed tears of joy. Wonderful! Our Radiant Order finally has an empress.